So before we jump into board certification, don't forget to subscribe to this video, like the video for this content and more of it to come in the future. Let us know what topics you want us to hit, law school topics, undergrad topics, or even when you're a lawyer, what you can do to boost your resume and your CV. Let us know what topics you want to hear, put them in the comments, and we'll try to bring more content on those topics.
Hi, I'm Peter Tragos, host of the Lawyer You Know podcast and YouTube channel. The saying goes, everyone hates lawyers until you need one. Well, I'm here when you need one to answer your questions and give you insight that you didn't know you needed.
Welcome back to another episode of The Lawyer You Know, and today we're going to talk about board certification in the legal realm, what it means, what it takes to be there. We're also going to introduce the newest lawyer in our firm, Dave Neiser, who is board certified in civil trial law. So he's going to be the expert to talk to us about board certification today. A lot of lawyers, law students, people thinking about being law students have a goal set in mind to end up being board certification. So Dave, just to kind of start us out, what is so important about board certification? Why do people care about it so much?
Why do people care about board certification? I think a lot of that depends on who the person is that's caring about it.
Okay.
I think one of the things that board certification does is if I'm a consumer, for example, I'm looking for an attorney. If there's a Florida lawyer that's board certified in a particular field, like civil trial law or criminal law or something like that, then it tells me, as the person that's looking for a lawyer, that that lawyer has reached a certain level of competence, expertise, peer review. You've been peer reviewed, that kind of thing, and so it's kind of a baseline at a minimum. So again, for me as someone who's coming in looking for a lawyer, who am I going to pick? There's so many choices. Sometimes you can, it's like information overload. I mean, there's so many people that you can choose from as a possibility. How do I decide who is best at that? And I think board certification comes into play there.
So even like on a more basic level than that, right? So that's somebody looking for a lawyer that understands the process. They're trying to differentiate, look at experience, look at training, look at what certifications they have or groups they belong to. But board certification, I think most people know it from a medical point of view, right? Because they always think about doctors being board certified. It's totally different in the legal realm, in my opinion, right? Because a huge percentage of doctors are board certified and a small percentage of lawyers are board certified. Do you know what the percentages are, at least in civil trial, or some of them that are board certified?
Yeah. I think in the state of Florida, there's a little over 100,000 lawyers, licensed lawyers in the state of Florida. Less than 10% of that are board certified.
Right, so it's a small percentage, and there are so many things you have to do to be board certified, which we'll get to, but that's a big difference. So I wouldn't go to a doctor that wasn't board certified, right? Most doctors are board certified before they can actually do anything. They have to take their boards. Lawyers, that's not it. A lot of people never take board certification exams, or for one reason or another, they're not board certified and they can still be great lawyers, right? There are board certified lawyers that are horrible and non-board certified lawyers that are great. So it's not like a baseline to be a good lawyer. It's an above and beyond type of thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think as a good example, a lot of people see these lawyer groups like National Association of Personal Injury Lawyers or top 50 lawyers in Florida or top PI lawyers or top trial lawyers. What's the difference between those groups and board certification?
Yeah, well, board certification is the only certification that's done by the Florida Bar. And the Florida Bar is the group, I guess, authorized by the Supreme Court to govern Florida licensed attorneys. So like I said earlier, there's 100,000 lawyers licensed in the state of Florida. The Florida Bar is essentially the group of those lawyers, and the part of the job of the Florida Bar is to govern and regulate Florida lawyers. So the Florida Bar is the one that has established this board certification. So if you are setting yourself out as an expert, if you want to be an expert in a certain field, board certification, which is what we're talking about here, is in this case, it's actually been given, and I think they actually call it as kind of like the gold standard. It's like, if you're board certified by the Florida Bar, then you know that the particular organization that governs all Florida lawyers, it's the only thing they do in terms of elevating, so to speak, and putting a stamp of approval specifically on a particular lawyer and the type of work that he does.
And you used to be able to, in Florida, not say you're an expert unless you were board certified.
Right.
That's how it used to be. I think that's how it should be. Like, if you're going to be an expert and call yourself an expert, I think you should have to be board certified. It's not like that anymore, because if you focus in on something, have enough years of experience where you want to call yourself an expert, you basically can now. The rules on advertising are getting less and less strict in Florida, but it used to be that was the expertise, and there's a reason for that. So let's get into what now it takes to be board certified. We can talk specifically about civil trial law. I can't remember if we've done one on my dad being criminal trial law. He's board certified. We can do another one with that later. If anybody would like for us to do that, let us know in the comments. But just talk specifically about what requirements, what's necessary, what experience, what do you have to do to be board certified in civil trial law?
Yeah, you've got to go through a number of different things. One is you've got to practice for a minimum, I believe, of 5 years. So you first of all, to get there, to even be eligible to be board certified, you've got to be practicing for, like I said, at least 5 years. You've then also, if it's in civil trial law, you've got to have at least 15 trials.
Are they jury trials? Do they count? But they count some hearings, right? If it's like a 2-day evidentiary hearing or something.
It's primarily jury trials. You can have like one that's a non-jury trial. You can have one or two that you were second chair on, but most of them...
And they have to be civil jury trials.
Yeah.
So that's what else is interesting is like specific to practice area. You can't just, like I've had more than 15 criminal trials. I haven't had more than 15 civil trials. So I wouldn't even be eligible to be board certified in civil trial law, because if you're going to be an expert in that very specific niche area like civil trial law, it has to be your experience in that area. So go ahead, keep saying
right.
What
And
else
civil trial law includes personal injury. It includes insurance. It includes those types of cases that we handle. So that's, the area of civil trial law. Right.
For the most part.
And they need to be circuit level. So it's a certain level of case. So county court cases, which are generally smaller type of cases, wouldn't count for that. But you've got to have at least 15 trials. You've got to go through an entire day of a comprehensive examination. So you go through an examination process. You get peer reviewed. So
explain what the peer review process is.
Well, the peer review, it's pretty thorough. I mean, again, this is the Florida Bar, and they want to say that they have thoroughly, when they put their stamp of approval, or if they've certified you as a board certified trial lawyer, for example, it's a big deal. I mean, it's like their stamp of approval, like I said earlier. So you're thoroughly vetted. You go through, like I said, a peer review process that involves other lawyers that you've worked against.
Isn't it lawyers, judges?
Yeah, judges are included in that. So if you've tried these 15 cases, for example, the Florida Bar goes back and they want to know what happened in those trials. They reach out to the lawyers that were against you. What was your level of professionalism? What was your level of competence, expertise? How was the case handled? So they do all of that, and like you said, they also reach out to the judges that were involved in those as well. So
we have the certain groups that you basically can just pay to get in and be on their list and get a plaque and put it up on your wall. Then you have the list above that, which is like super lawyers or top trial lawyers or whatever, where there is some peer review. You have to be chosen. You don't necessarily have to pay. And, that's kind of a level above that. But then this is so far above and beyond, because you do have to take a test. You have to have certain experience. You have to have the peer review, which is deeper than any other peer review in any of those other groups you can be a part of. And those are all just to be board certified, right? So once you get board certified, isn't there a continuing thing you have to do that on top of that?
Right. So for me, I've been board certified since 2001. So 2021 is going to be, it's 20 years. So I've been board certified as a civil trial attorney for 20 years. It's good for 5 years. So you have to get recertified every 5 years.
And what do you have to do in the recertification?
Well, you basically go back. You don't have to take a test again, but you got to go back and reapply. Essentially, you have to provide them a list of all the trials you've had in the last 5 years. You give them all that information. They go back out. They'll talk to the judges. They'll talk to the opposing counsel. Similar process to what was done before. But you also have to, within that 5-year period, exhibit the fact that you're still actively involved in the practice of civil trial law, that you've tried cases. There's a minimum number of trials that you have to have within that time period. So you have to recertify that type of thing. You don't have to do the test again.
Right.
but that's essentially the process.
Isn't there a certain percentage that your practice has to be focused on the area that you get board certified in?
Yeah, it's got to be, and I don't know what the percentage
it's like
is.
75 or 90% or something. It's a high percent.
Yeah, you're primarily involved in that area of law.
So most people can't be double board certified. Now, there probably is some that has enough crossover, but I think they do that purposely, that you've got to be so focused on one area. Usually it's one board certification that you have. I think there are some guys that are dual, but unlike the medical field, again, where you can get dual board certified, you have to re-up every 10 years, I think, in most of those, at least the orthopedic one. So there's some serious, and then there's also continuing legal education you have to do, right? Don't you have to do extra hours for that?
You got to have
be board certified.
like 50 hours of legal.
We all have to do that. Every lawyer's got to keep doing their CLEs, but then board certified lawyers have to do even more. Okay, so that's basically the process of what it takes to be board certified. We talked about how few people are board certified. So we know why clients want a board certified lawyer, as far as trying to pick the best lawyer with the most experience, the most competent lawyer that's really great at specifically what you're looking for to hire in that lawyer. But talk about how other lawyers see board certified lawyers, what you think it means in the community and in cases when you're going up against somebody, what you look at if you have somebody on the other side. Mm-hmm. How does it affect how lawyers look at you?
If I'm dealing with an attorney who's board certified against me, for example, then immediately I'm going to know what that lawyer's kind of gone through. I know they've reached a certain level of competence. They have a certain level of ethics. They have a certain level of professionalism. They've reached a certain level of dedication that they put into it. And so, at a minimum, I know what I'm getting with. I've got someone who knows what they're doing essentially on the other side of the case.
And not just that, but the judges as well.
Yeah,
the judges know you or whoever you're against. If they're board certified, they know that they've done this a lot. They have that experience.
Right. Again, there's a certain level of professionalism, a certain level of ethics, and all of that plays in to me the professional way to handle cases, and that means a lot, I think, for the judges and for opposing counsel and for insurance companies. They know generally the ones that are trying cases, that type of thing, and I think board certification is a very important part of that.
It's like real recognize real, right?
Yeah.
You have board certified, you know somebody else board certified. We always talk about how it's so much easier. Some people would think, especially non-lawyers, that we like going up against bad lawyers because it's easier for us to go win, go beat this other bad lawyer, whatever. From my perspective, I like going up against good lawyers because it actually makes the process more streamlined. We know that each other knows the rules. We know that it's going to be professional. We know it's going to be ethical. We don't have to worry about certain things for the most part. There's always bad apples in every group, board certified or not. But it makes it a lot easier to go through the process when you're dealing with somebody that knows the rules, as opposed to them doing something and you look at it and say, everybody should know you can't do it this way. So sometimes it makes it easier, even if you've got to hunker down and make sure you cross your T's, dot your I's, because they know what they're doing as well. But when you deal with board certification kind of as a whole and being board certified now for 20 years, well, how do you think it's helped you since you've become board certified throughout your career? How do you think it's kind of helped you talk to clients, talk to other lawyers, and kind of use that certification and that level of expertise to your benefit?
Yeah, I think a couple things in that. One is, I think one of the things I think that I think is important to talk about, and when I talk to potential clients and people that are talking to me, is when you're getting a lawyer to handle your case, like the type of cases we handle, contingency fee cases, our fee is a percentage of the recovery in the case. And that percentage of recovery is essentially the same. It's the same amount charged by most every other lawyer that does the same type of work. And so you, as a person that may be coming in looking to hire a lawyer to do the type of stuff that we do, you can hire a board certified civil trial attorney, and the cost to you, the percentage fee, is going to be the same as someone who may have only been out of law school a couple of years. Now that lawyer may be a very competent lawyer, but that's a little bit different, I think, than some things that we're used to buying. If you think you're going to get maybe something that's a little bit more advanced, a little bit better, you're going to have to pay more for that, and that's generally true.
Yeah, and like if you look at my dad in criminal cases, he's exponentially more expensive than a lot of other lawyers, and you have to stroke that check and pay it up front. And a lot of times we say you get what you pay for in criminal defense. Well, in personal injury, you literally can pick any lawyer you want, and they're generally the same price, meaning they're going to charge the same percentage. Now, Better lawyers are going to end up making more money most of the time because they can maximize your case more, which if the case is worth more, the lawyer gets paid more since it's a percentage of the total settlement. So when the client gets more money, the lawyer gets more money, and it all kind of works cohesively together. But whether you get a board certified lawyer or a great lawyer, the best lawyer in the world, or the worst lawyer in the world, generally you're paying them the same.
Right. And I think that's a fact that we as, again, I keep using the word consumers, but someone who may want to use a lawyer or need a lawyer of the type of stuff that we do, you're not thinking like that. I can get this lawyer that has got a certain level of experience, 20 years of being board certified, 30 years of practice, or I can maybe go over to this lawyer, again, that may not have that same level of experience. And I do think it's called the practice of law for a reason, because I do think over time, the practice and getting better at it and improving, that's a lot of what we do. And so I think someone who is more seasoned, has got more experience, not always, but in many ways will be much more experienced and better, and you may get a better result. So getting back to what we're talking about in terms of I can get this lawyer or this lawyer and the cost is essentially the same. That's one of the things that I try to bring out in some of these conversations that I'm having is, yeah, you can get me essentially, or board certified civil trial attorney, for the same price as possibly someone else who's not.
Right, and I think that should come into play. Like we talk about a lot, how you pick your lawyer, and experience has a lot to do with it. Their past successes, what their results have been, how they work with clients, reviews, what other clients say about them, referrals, things like that. And I think that's really important, which is why you should meet with lawyers, talk to them, talk about their prior cases, talk about their experience, talk about the lawyers they have in their firm and how they can kind of work together and the resources that they have. All of that's really important, and I think board certification is a big part of that. So one of the things which is just interesting, which I'll ask you about, so back in the day, as we say, as the young kids say, so 2001, cases were tried more often back then.
Sure,
right?
absolutely,
So do you find that there are more board certified lawyers from that generation than from our generation now?
Good question. And I would say, I haven't looked at that specifically, but I would probably say yes.
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of board, so either the two most common board certified lawyers are older plaintiffs lawyers, not to say that you're old, experienced I should say, or defense lawyers. Because defense lawyers, when they work for defense firms, they can try a bunch of cases, they can sit second chair, they can do one or two witnesses and become board certified. So I think a lot of the plaintiffs lawyers that have carried the heavy burden that become, and a lot of them have done both, so it's not to say one's better than the other, but it's a different aspect when plaintiffs lawyers, I think, are board certified versus some defense lawyers in what the experience is that they have. They have the burden of their client on their shoulders. If they lose, it matters a lot more because they're invested in it, their client's invested in it. So I do think it's almost another level for me personally when a plaintiff's lawyer is doing it, and it shows how much experience they usually have, because at full-time trial firms like ours, we're only getting a couple cases to trial a year.
Right. And I think that's an important fact too, is even though you may want to retain a board certified civil trial attorney, it doesn't mean that we are automatically going to take your case to trial. I mean, we, like Peter said, I mean, most cases settle, but I think it's important to know at the beginning of the case that you've got a lawyer or a law firm that can handle the case all the way to the end, and they're not afraid to try the case. They're not going to do what they can to get out of the courtroom. It's something that we are happy to do or willing to do. We're not pushing for it.
Because a lot of times it's not better for the client to go to trial, right? And we handle every case individually, what's best for the client, which is why a lot of them don't go to trial. We would love to. I would love to try more cases, but we talk about the risk that the client's in sometimes, and our advice is to settle it because it might not get any better than where we're at right now, which I think is important. But yeah, insurance companies, defense lawyers know what lawyers are just going to settle your case no matter what. They're not going to try it, or they're going to have to refer it out and cut their fee in half or by 2/3 or whatever it may be. And they also know which firms have the firepower, have the lawyers, have the resources that are actually going to take it all the way, and they track that stuff. And they're tracking it just like the Florida Bar tracks it when you apply to be board certified. So having board certified lawyers or being a board certified lawyer already indicates to the insurance companies or the defense firms that, you know, we've got to pay what this case is worth, or we're going to have to go prove it in front of a jury. It doesn't always work. Every case you have doesn't get settled for great value because they know you're going to try it. Sometimes the case is worth trying because the insurance company wants to take the risk and our client wants to take the risk, and it goes to trial and we try the case. So it doesn't make any guarantees. It's just, I like the way of thinking. It's a baseline of competency and experience where I wish I could say I've never heard of a board certified lawyer really dropping the ball, but where they usually aren't going to drop the ball or be some slop job or be some fly-by-night lawyer who's going to disappear halfway through your case. They're more legitimized by the Florida bar because they put their stamp on it. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so how does it make you think about kind of as you progress in your career and other lawyers coming up? What advice would you give to younger lawyers, law students, or prospective law students, or a lot of people that are listening to this, about setting goals to be board certified? Should it be one of their top goals? How much should they focus on it? How much should they push? And what can they do in their career to kind of take those steps?
Yeah, I think, and I think one of the things that the Florida bar has said is that being board certified is actually one of the, I think it's like the number one criteria that Floridians use in looking for a lawyer. So if you're looking, if you're a lawyer who's looking to distinguish yourself, board certification is considered, again, by the Florida bar to be the number one way to do that, the number one separator, the number one criteria that, again, people seeking attorneys will look at. And so if you're board certified, you're going to separate yourself. I think separate from that, it's just a way in which to improve yourself. It's a way in which to get better at things. It's a way in which to continue. You've got to do certain types of continuing legal education.
But so what advice would you give to somebody that wants to do that? And they're starting out, either they're within 5 years or they're in law school. They want to set out kind of a plan in place. What are some things some advice you would tell them to focus on or try to make sure they get done?
Well, I think as you said earlier, you can try some cases with another lawyer. So it's possible to, in other words, if you want to get board certified, if you want to get out there and get board certified in Florida, you can associate with another law firm, for example, that may be trying a case, and being second chair may count. Not only will you get the experience and you'll learn from some other lawyers, obviously that's great, but you can also, that could be as one of the bases for getting your qualification.
Especially if you're opening up your own firm or in a small firm that's going to have a lower case volume, that's a good way to get more trials.
Right. And it's one of the things that we have done is associate, let's say a firm that may be a smaller firm, may not have the resources, may not be in a position to try cases, but they may handle the same type of case initially. They can associate with us, and they have in the past.
And they'll look for a board certified lawyer to do that with, because they may have the experience in running the ball or settling cases, even maybe doing depositions or demands, but maybe they don't have the experience or confidence or competence. Or when we say resources, so a lot of people may not know, it costs a lot of money to try these cases. We've got to pay experts. We've got to pay lawyers sometimes. We've got to pay costs for medical bills and charts and paperwork. And there's tons of costs throughout years of litigation that are just carrying costs that sit on the books. And while that might be in the weeds, but that's what we mean by certain firms have those resources, certain firms don't. And trial firms have to have those resources to be taken seriously. And sometimes there's nothing wrong with a solo practitioner or a smaller firm that then will call somebody like you to try a case with them, or call a firm like ours to come in and help them try the case. And that's a good source and a benefit of being a board certified trial lawyer. That's usually who they'll look to associate with. But you as a young lawyer can also look to other firms and say, hey, you don't have to pay me or whatever it may be. I just want to get the experience. I want to come on board and try this case with you to learn. And that's a good step towards board certification.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things that this firm provides is, I think you've talked a little about it, it's a smaller firm. We're not too small.
Right.
We're not too huge.
Right.
And we're local.
Exactly.
And I think local, meaning you know the area, you know the court system,
know the judges, you know the defense lawyers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think going local and having a firm that, again, is not too big where you get lost in the weeds, but it's a trial firm. I mean, it's a firm with dedicated lawyers that are trying cases, I think is important.
So try to try cases. Okay, that's one of the pieces of evidence, and one good tip to do that is maybe associating with lawyers that aren't even in your firm. Another tip for trying to get board certified, I'm asking the question, do you think when someone comes out, focusing in on the practice area they want, if it's if it's civil trial. So I'll take a pause to say, you can be board certified family law lawyer, criminal law lawyer, probate, patent, whatever, like any specialty area. So if you want to do that, would you recommend focusing in on an area, making sure it's the right percentage, 75% or whatever it is of your practice from the jump, to really try to focus in on where you want to be board certified, where you want to be an expert?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there are some lawyers, there are some law firms that are diverse. They may do a number of different things, but I think as time goes on, as things become that much more complicated, you'll find that you'll become an expert or you'll just get involved in one area primarily, the family law, criminal.
There's no doubt that when you work in one area, you know so much more than people that spread to multiple areas.
Right.
Like even just doing some criminal with PI, I used to do much more of it back in the day, but I like PI so much more. But I also noticed just the more I did it, the more I dive into it, the more I feel like I'm an expert at that. And there are a lot of things I don't know in other areas of law that I wouldn't take or handle for other people, as I'm sure you feel the same. But when you really focus in on it, and every case you try has a little different aspect. So even you, board certified 20 years, you learn something new basically on every case, whether it's with a defense lawyer, a judge, an expert, something a doctor says you've never heard before. We'll spitball it and sit in a room with a couple of lawyers in our firm and just kind of talk about strategy, which is really fun to do when you have a lot of experience and you learn every time. But it is so huge to find a lawyer that focuses in on the type of law that you want to do or that you have a need for if you're a client looking for that lawyer. And I think board certification shows that they focus on that practice area.
Yeah.
So for young lawyers, that's something you would say is it's good to get a focus. And now people got to eat. So when you go out and you're solo practitioner, sometimes they take any case that comes in. People, make the decisions that they make. But if you want to be board certified and specialized, you would recommend really digging into one practice
Absolutely.
area.
Again, I think if your field is real estate or family law, if you become board certified in that area, you've now been given a stamp, so to speak, almost a gold standard stamp that if I need a family law attorney, if I have a complicated real estate transaction, look for the guy that's board certified in that field. You're going to know that he's or she has reached a certain level of competence, that they're going to know what they're talking about, and generally they're going to be able to sift through that, and they've already been kind of, like I said earlier, thoroughly vetted by the Florida Bar, who governs us. That that's someone who you can rely on, that you can trust on.
So would you say when we ask how hard it is to do, maybe that's not a fair question because you can do it, but you just need to have certain boxes checked. Would you say if somebody wants to be board certified that it's too hard, it's not something they should shoot for, or do you think it's an attainable task if you work hard as a lawyer and focus in on a practice area?
Absolutely. I think it's like the early 1980s is when the Florida Supreme Court set out board certification, or the Board of Legal, whatever it's called, the specialization committee or group or organization of the Florida Bar. So it's been active since 1982. It's been promoted. It's something that they are pushing and continue to push, again, as a separator. I just was talking, I think just yesterday, kind of a different thinking for a second, but I was on Amazon and I was looking for a Kindle for myself. Well, I wanted to get a case for it. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Amazon. You've been using Amazon and you put in, okay, I want this. All of a sudden, 50 different cases come up to use with the Kindle, and you start looking at that and you're like, which is the best one? You start to look at client reviews.
So lawyers are becoming like that too.
Well, and I'm
you
saying
can Google lawyer and then 50 lawyers will
well,
pop up.
but the Amazon Choice, if you're familiar with Amazon
Right.
Choices, Amazon Choice comes up and they give this nice little badge for maybe one of them that
Right.
says, and so I've learned, and I'm sure other people have as well, that in that case when I was looking at for cases, there were so many there, I saw the Amazon Choice. And that's their stamp that it's usually something highly rated,
Right.
the price is right, it's available. So that's what I went with, was a case that had already been kind of Amazon approved. It was an Amazon Choice. So coming forward to looking for a lawyer in a particular field, and there's so many of them out there to choose from, it's kind of the same thing in my mind, that you've got the Florida Bar, who governs lawyers, puts their stamp on this particular lawyer that's board certified in a certain field. And I think it gives you, again, a certain level of comfort. And so if you're aspiring to do that, I think that's great. And I think it not only will help you improve you help you get better as a lawyer in your field, because it's hard. I mean, you'll continue to learn, to grow. You've got to get, like we said earlier, recertified. You've got to go through a peer review process. You've got to continue to maintain a certain high level of ethics. And all those things happen, and it continues to, you've got to continue to do that. I think that's, the aspiration of it, and I think it just keeps you going as a lawyer year after year.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about on our other podcasts and other videos about differentiators in law school for law students, differentiators on your resume, what can help you get a job, what can help you get this, that, the other. while this is kind of like the next level when you become a lawyer, a differentiator like mock trial, moot court, law review when you're in law school, or really high GPAs or pro bono hours or extracurriculars. This is one of those when you actually become a lawyer. So it doesn't stop when you're in law school. There are all sorts of groups you can join, committees you can get on, and then the board certification stamp of approval basically is something that is a differentiator. It's not much different than what we've talked about on resumes and in law school prior. So hopefully this kind of answered people's questions for young lawyers, for lawyers who are in law school or prospective lawyers, and then also for people looking for lawyers. That was kind of the goal. Those are the groups we wanted to explain what board certification is, how you get it, and how it can be used kind of throughout your career. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, subscribe to our page, like the video, leave us comments if you have any more questions. If you have questions for Dave, we'll have him on more videos and podcasts in the future. But for now, that's all we got.
Thanks for watching this episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you like this content, please share it with your friends. Make sure you subscribe to our page and like our videos. If you want some interaction, get in the comments and we'll be sure to get back to you. If you want to know any more information about our firm or this page, you can find out in the description or visit tragoslaw.com. We post multiple times throughout the week, so make sure you hit that bell so you can get the notification and not miss out on the next episode.